Yagishwaram Ramakrishnam Saradam Matra Rupinim Vivekanandam Acharyam Natva Vakshami Shuddhaye Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Chavaidikena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjali Ranatosmi. In our last class we discussed the sutra which describes or lists the parvas or the phases of the gunas. The gunas, sattva, rajas, tama, these are the, so to say, the building blocks of this entire experienced world, creation, whatever you call it, starting from our own mind and senses and everything. Vishesha, Vishesha, Lingamatra, Lingani, Guna Parvani. Parvan means phases. These are the phases of the gunas. Here the cosmology, so to say, the theory of creation, evolution of the Sankhyas and Yogis that is mentioned here. And the list that Patanjali gave was from effect to the cause. The first cause or the causeless cause actually is the alinga or the pradhana, where the gunas are in a state of equilibrium and there is no cause beyond this. It is eternal. It is causeless cause, so to say. It is eternal. That is samyavastha, state of equilibrium of the gunas. There is no creation per se in this, though it is potent in this state, but there is no creation. Out of this comes the first effect called lingamatra or what is called mahat, wherein also there is no explicit creation per se, but there is a sense of existence, a beingness, so to say. Existence, pure existence itself, or you can say universal existence or whatever. So that is the first manifestation in this order. Its cause is the pradhanavastha. Effect is this mahat is the effect. And this mahat again becomes the cause for further evolution, you can say. On one side, the pancha tanmatras or the subtle elements, and on the other side, the asmita or the sense of ego. That is, these are the evolutes of pradhana. They are called avisheshats. So these are subtle, so to say. 6 avisheshats. And from these come the visheshats or the particularized. From the pancha tanmatras come the pancha bhutas. Prithvi, up, tej, vayu, like earth and all that. Earth, fire, water, wind and akasha, space and all that. And from asminta come the 11 organs, 5 jnanendriyas, organs of knowledge, organs of action and the mind. So these 11 and those 5, the 16 are visheshats. So 16 visheshats, then 5 are visheshats. And then there is mahat and then there is pradhana. That is these are the 4 phases of existence of the gunas. That's what we have to understand. In all these phases are the phases of gunas. It is only the gunas which are manifesting or existing in all these phases, in all these forms, so to say. There is nothing other than gunas in the whole of creation, according to this philosophy of yogis and Sankhyas. There is the difference between, so to say, this Vedanta and Sankhya Yoga. This Prakriti or whole creation, the world, whatever we call it, Vedanta accepts it as a manifestation of Brahman itself, in the sense that this creation, in whatever form you see it, it doesn't have its own existence. For its existence, it depends on Brahman. We call it Ishvara or whatever. It has no independent existence according to Vedanta. Whereas according to Sankhya's, this Prakriti, in all its forms, it has its own existence independent of the existence of the Purusha, which is the self. So that's why they're called dualists. According to them, there are many Purushas, so multiplicity of the Purushas, and independent existence of Prakriti. This is where they differ from the Vedanta. Vedanta also accepts gunas, that's all right. This nature, Prakriti is consisting of gunas, that Vedanta also accepts. But all of this is manifestation, you can say Ishvara, then Devi, Hesha, Gunamayi, Maya, Dhuratyaya. So Ishvara's Maya, it rests on Ishvara. It is in Ishvara. It is dependent on Ishvara. That is the Vedantic view, Vedantic principle, so to Siddhanta. Whereas the Sankhya and Yogis accept this Prakriti to be independent of Purusha. It's a metaphysical principle. It is metaphysically true, truly true, so to say. So that is one thing. And then this evolution, this is how this whole cosmology or the whole theory of creation of the Sankhya's is. When we say Vishesha, there are further changes happening. Like what we see the world, this is again evolved out of these Visheshas, like especially the Panchabhutans. But that change is not accepted as a change of principle, so to say. So the last effect is the Panchabhutas and Ekadasha Indriyas. That is the last effect. These further do undergo changes to actually manufacture or create or project this universe. But those changes are not accepted as changes in principle. So those are just changes in their character and all that. Lakshana, Dharma, Parinama, like that. So those changes, they do happen, changes do happen, or evolution does progress beyond this Vishesha state. But those are not changes in principle. So Vishesha is the last, so to say, evolute in this theory of creation. Okay, so this is what we saw in our last class. This is the Drishya part. So Drishya, we had 2 sutras were dedicated. Prakasha, Kriya, Sthiti, Shilam, Bhutendriyatmikam, Bhoga, Pavargartham, Drishyam, that was one. And this was another, Vishesha, Linga Matra, Lingani, Gunaparvani. So having given us this idea about what Drishya is, Patanjali now takes up the concept of the Drashta, because their Sanyoga is the cause of Heya. Heya is what is to be given up, that is the Dukkha, Anagata Dukkha. Its cause is the Sanyoga of Drashta and Drishya. We have seen what Drishya is. Now, what is Drashta? That's few sutras Patanjali takes up. So, the first sutra in this is Drashta Drishimatraha Shuddhopi Pratyayanupashyaha. That is the sutra. Drashta Drishimatraha Shuddhopi Pratyayanupashyaha. He is defining Drashta. So Drashta, as we discussed, I think in one of our last classes, though we are using the term Darshana, Drishya, Drashta, which in general sense when we use, it means seeing with eyes. But here it means experiencing. So when we say Drishya, it is the experienced, and Drashta is the experiencer, not exactly the seer of through eyes per se. So Drashta or the experiencer, Drishimatra, knowledge itself, it is pure, it is Shuddha, and it is, so to say, a sequential experiencer. Pratyaya Anupashyaha. That is how Drashta is defined. Now, when we say Drashta, we are talking about our own real nature. We are not talking of a third entity, not some object. We are talking about our own real nature. We discussed this in one of the earlier classes. We are trying to get some idea about our own real nature. The Swarupa is beyond the scope of Sanyoga. Now, this is Drashta and Drishya Sanyoga has happened. Right now, we are in a state of Sanyoga. Our thinking, our understanding, everything is in a state of Sanyoga right now. And Drashta, the Swarupa, is beyond this scope of Sanyoga. Only when Viyoga happens, Drashta's real nature will be known. So what we are trying to understand our own real nature, when we are trying to understand our own real nature, this limitation we have, we are in a state of Sanyoga, and Drashta is our real nature that is beyond this scope of Sanyoga. So we will have our limitations in trying to understand our own real nature. So only when the mind becomes absolutely pure and concentrated, then only this Viyoga will happen. That's where we will be established in our own true nature. Till then, we can only imagine what is our real nature. It will be an imagination. So our real nature, the Drashta Swarupa of the Drashta, this Patanjali says, it is Drishamatra, pure knowledge, knowledge itself, only knowledge. Shuddha, it says it is pure. Why is it so pure? To distinguish it from Antahkarana, with which it has got mixed up, so to say. To distinguish it from Antahkarana, which it has got Sanyoga or mixed up, is saying it is Shuddha. So to say, impurities of the Antahkarana, they are not in our true nature, in Drashta, they are not there. What do you call impurities? Of course, there are many impurities, but few that are spoken of in the Bhashya and all that, it is changing. The Antahkarana, the mind is always changing. Whereas in our real nature, there is no change, it is changeless. The Antahkarana is a composite of gunas, whereas the Shuddha means it is not a compound, it's simple. So in our real nature, we are simple, not a compound. We are unchanging, so to say. Like that's how the word Shuddha is explained in the Bhashya. So it is, in that way, it is distinct from the Antahkarana. Because the Sanyoga, finally the Sanyoga that we are talking of is between our real nature as Drashta and this mind or Antahkarana. They have become mixed up. That is where we have not become mixed up with the world. I mean, we don't identify ourselves with the table and chair, but we identify ourselves with the mind. So the Sanyoga has happened with the mind. But this is how the Sutrakara is telling that, yes, Sanyoga is there, but in our real nature, we are Shuddha, distinct, dissimilar from this Antahkarana. And Pratyayanupashya, it kind of shows how we have not completely dissimilar, so to say. So, what is this Pratyayanupashya? As I said, we translated it as sequential seer. It means it sees through succession, so to say. One or two examples, if we give, we can make it clear. So we get into a room, it is dark. We cannot see anything. Then we switch on the light, we are able to see. Now we are seeing with the help of the light. Without light, we cannot see. But the light in itself cannot see anything. We have to see. So light becomes sort of a sequential seer. It sees through us. The light sees through us. That is one example that is given. The other example that can be given, or that is given, is a person who cannot see without glasses. That person has to wear glasses to see things. So now there are eyes, there are glasses, and there is the seeing, the act of seeing or the knowledge. Without glasses, that person cannot see. But if there are no eyes, if the eyes are closed, then glasses themselves cannot see. This is another analogy. So glasses are seeing sequentially through, or the eyes are seeing sequentially through the glasses. So eyes are seeing sequentially through the glasses. So like that, this, our real nature, this Drashta, and there is this Antahkarana, our own mind. These two are there. They have this proximity. All the modifications are happening in the mind, in the Antahkarana, according to this, and even Vedantic epistemology, theory of knowledge also. Knowledge happens when the Antahkarana takes the form of the object. If I hear something, the Antahkarana modifies itself into a particular form of what I am hearing. or what I'm seeing, the antahkarana modifies itself into that form. What I'm smelling, the antahkarana modifies itself into that form. But in itself, it is jada. It is trigunatmaka. It is jada. It is a composite. It cannot know by itself. This antahkarana, our own mind, it cannot know by itself. It has borrowed, so to say, this light of the self, the light of our true nature, the light of drashta. It has borrowed that reflection, whatever you call it. Through that light it sees. And the self, though it is distinct from this antahkarana, so to say, apparently becomes one with it and sees things. So anupashya, sequential seeing, is like that. It lends its light, our true nature, the drashta, it lends its light and apparently becomes one with the chitta vrittis, with the modifications of the mind, and then sees. So that is what is called anudarshanam, sequential seeing. Directly it cannot see. The self cannot directly see the objects. It cannot. It has to see through the mind. Through the mind, by lending its light, by lending its awareness, consciousness, and apparently identifying itself with the chitta vrittis, it sees. Now that is how this word anupashyaha or anudarshanam can be explained. So this is what is happening within us. Our real nature is pure consciousness. In our real nature, we are Shuddha, not a composite, without any changes. At the same time, we are lending our light to this instrument called antahkarana, and apparently becoming one with it, we are knowing things, we are experiencing things. That is the drashta, that is the definition of drashta. That is how drashta is explained or defined by the Sutrakara and explained by the Bhashya. So that is our real nature, drashta. As I say, we are trying to imagine what our real nature is, which is beyond the scope of sanyoga, while being within the scope of sanyoga. We are in the scope of sanyoga. We are in a state of sanyoga. And our real nature is beyond this state of sanyoga. We are trying to imagine that. We are trying to understand that. So that is the drashta. And this sanyoga has happened. What sanyoga is, subsequently it will be explained. Now the next two sutras, the subject of next two sutras had come up earlier. Bhogapavargartham drishyam. There was the phrase that we studied. So the same idea comes in the next two sutras. It says, Tadartha eva drishyasya atma. That is the next sutra. Tadartha eva drishyasya atma. If you translate it, here tad refers to Purusha. So tadartha means to serve the interests of Purusha. Tadartha means to serve the interests of Purusha, to serve the purpose of Purusha. Who is serving or who has to serve the interests of Purusha? He says drishyasya atma. It's difficult to translate in the sense, literally it is difficult to translate. Drishyasya atma will mean the soul of the drishya, the soul of the experienced, the soul of the creation, the soul of Prakriti, the whole drishya. The soul of Prakriti is to serve the interests of Purusha. That's how it will be literally translated. The soul of Prakriti, the soul of drishya, is to serve the interests of Purusha. Now, here the word Atma, or the soul or the self, is not in any metaphysical sense. It is literary or poetic sense, so to say. You can say poetic sense. In the sense, we say music is the very soul of that person. In that sense it is used here. When I say music is the very soul of that person, it means the very purpose of that person's existence is music. Without music, that person will cease to exist, so to say. That person loves music so much, or that person is so devoted to music. But without music, that person will cease to exist. So we say music is the very soul of that person. In that sense, it is used here, tadartha eva drishyasya atma. The very existence of drishya, the very existence of prakriti is in order to serve the interests of purusha. That is the meaning. The very existence of drishya is in order to serve the interests of drashta, tadartha, drashtartha. The purpose of drashta, the interests of drashta. To serve that is the very purpose of the existence of drishya. That is how this is translated. As I said, this idea had come earlier, bhogapavargartham drishyam. But here it is more emphatically said that drishya, or this creation, has no purpose of its own. It has no purpose of its own. Its very existence is for us, to serve our interests. And as we saw earlier, what are the interests of the drashta? What are the interests of the purusha? What are our interests? Which this nature is there to serve. It was bhoga and apavarga. The experience and liberation. This is our interest. This is the interest of the purusha. This is the interest of the drashta, which this drishya is there to serve. Without that, it has no other reason to exist, so to say. It has no other reason to exist except to serve the purpose of the purusha, of the drashta. And this is also logical in the sense there is this nyaya, sanghadasya pararthatva. So whatever is a combination, whatever is assemblage, so to say, whatever is produced by combining things, never lives for itself, never exists for itself. We see in the world also, and this is an established logic, nyaya. Whatever is sanghata, samhata, whatever has come into being by coming together of parts, is parartha, is meant for somebody else. So this whole creation, as we know, it's a coming together of the gunas. It is a composite. It is an assembly, so to say. It is samhata, it is sanghata. Obviously, it has no purpose of its own. And that is how some people say that the existence of Purusha is also established. Because otherwise, for whom is the whole creation functioning? Being a sanghata, being a composite, it cannot work for its own. So it has to work for an entity which is distinct from itself. And that is Purusha. So anyway, so this is what this sutra tells, that the very purpose or the very existence of this creation is to serve our purposes, our interests, interests of the Purusha, interests of the Drashta, in the form of bhoga and apavarga. As we saw, we gain experience as we go through life, but we should learn from those experiences till we realize that everything is vanity, and till we realize our true nature through all those experiences, and renouncing all those attractions and repulsions and all that, being established in our true nature. That is apavarga. So that is the twin purpose for the existence of this creation. Right. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.